Here I am on my hike up here in the mountains north of Las Vegas. This is a canyon I just walked up in. Now you can't tell, but my truck is way out there by the mountains at the very end of this valley.
When he set out on the quest to find the M Cave on November 10th, 2014, Kenny Veach was expected to return from what was planned to be an overnight hike. But he never returned, and his case became one of the biggest internet mysteries to date. Before I start, I would like to send my thoughts and sympathy to the family and friends of Kenny Veach. May them find the answers that they've been looking for, and I hope they find comfort in the fact that Kenny disappeared doing what he loved.
My name is Kenny Veach, and get ready because I'm going to show you a few things about myself, and I'm going to let you know just what I do, what I am, and how much I enjoy life, and how I go about doing that.
Kenny Veach was a hiker who went missing in the Mojave Desert around the Nellis Air Force Base and Area 51 back in November 2014. The desert has a lot of things such as abandoned mine, plenty of caves, lots of mountains, all of which attract adventurers from all over the world. But it is worth mentioning that the terrain itself is not for the inexperienced hikers, and many who have ventured there never returned. Kenny Veach was one of them. At 47 years old, Kenny Veach was a highly experienced hiker and adventurer. During one of his hikes in the Mojave Desert, he came across a hidden cave which opening resembled the letter M, hence the famous name M Cave. In a comment that he left under a video titled "Son of an Area 51 Technician" on YouTube, he said of the cave, "I always enter every cave that I find, but as I began to enter this particular cave, my whole body began to vibrate. The closer I got to the cave entrance, the worse the vibrating became. Suddenly, I became very scared and hightailed it out of there. That was one of the strangest things that ever happened to me." People chimed in the conversation that his comments started, and soon they were challenging him to go back with a camera this time as proof. Kenny went back but could not find the cave.
Well, I did not find the cave. That is so weird.
He went back online to report and was egged on to go back and look for it again. Kenny made the promise to go a third time. On November 10, 2014, Kenny Veach embarked on what would be an overnight adventure in search of the M Cave and was never seen or heard of again. His disappearance became one of internet mysteries, and many have tried to understand and find out what happened to him. So many questions were raised, including one about a comment that was left under his M Cave hiking video by a user named Lemai Killmister and has since been deleted. The comment read, "No, do not go back there. If you find that cave entrance, do not go in. If you do, you won't get out." Kenny responded to that comment with a question asking the user what made them say that. Nothing was ever seen, read, or heard from that commentator since. What happened to Kenny Veach? Did Kenny Veach hurt himself? This question is important because his girlfriend at the time, Sharon, had shared a comment about Kenny opening up to her about signing off. In her comment, it was said that Kenny told her that if he did sign off, he would do it in the wilderness, where no one would ever find him. Why is this comment important? because in the same comment, the girlfriend said that she had seen his depression worsen before his final hike because of financial strains. Where is Kenny Veach? Does this cave hide anything in particular? There are obviously so many questions surrounding Kenny Veach's disappearance, and the fact that it happened not far from Area 51 has added to the conspiracy theories. I'm going to throw a grand tableau with the hope to get something helpful enough to understand this mystery more. We'll also stay along the line of the questions that I asked earlier. The theme of this grand tableau is seen in the first three letters, at least how I read. We have the mice, the coffin, and the snake, and these three put together could be planning to sign off, like taking yourself out. But also when I look at the coffin and the snake, this is also a possibility of some type of diagnosis, some sad news from a doctor. And again, we come back to it as we dig deeper into this reading. Next, the energy for this grand tableau will be the cards at the extremities, starting here. We have the sun, then the mice, then we move to the cross and the garden. And these four corners could mean, or at least tell me, that Kenny Veach could have been possibly a shadow of himself by the time he went out and seeked the cave, because the sun here is, literally the sun, it's bright, but then the mice is the mice card that is taking away, so this is light dimming, and the cross, that is a burden, so dimming light and feeling of being a burden to society or even in the world as a whole. And again, looking at those three cards, feeling the need to take yourself out, because if you are a burden to others, taking yourself out will alleviate it all for everybody, including yourself. Also, taking the cross with the garden could indicate that Kenny Veach had a spiritual way of life, not particularly religious, but spiritual. He had that kind of way of life going on for him. But I also wonder if he felt like an outcast in society as a whole, especially with what was going on in his life at the time of his disappearance. Because again, if he felt like an outcast and with everything else going on in his life, it could have been just a matter of time before this happened. The coffin and the site, this is self-harm or an accident of some sort that lead to this condition. And this could have also happened because of this to here, the mice and the coffin, which is irreplaceable loss of some sort. Moving on to Kenny Veach himself, this is a card which will represent him, the man card. When I look at these cards around him, again, they tell me he was an adventurer, especially with the stork and the sheep card. This is someone who is or was full of love for the outdoors, and that is what we saw in the first part of this video, that he was indeed an adventurer. But also the presence of the sheep really close to the stork, and the moon here could also be an indication that he may be far gone, whether physically or as a soul, especially with the moon on the top line above, the line above the gentleman and really close to the ship, and the ship mirroring with the man. Then we could also see what we got from the introduction of himself. He was indeed regarded as very experienced, at least in the hiking community. Here's the experience with the lily right above him. So that is the experience that he had. And hiking, the hiking community, of course, we have here the mountain and the garden. The garden, which is public, it is community, is gathering, and the mountain, in our case, this is hiking and put together the hiking community. So yes, he had that going on for him, but we could also see that even though he was experienced in hiking, he was also a risk taker, and he might have tempted nature a lot and pushed his luck a lot. And I see that with the clover and the moon, and of course those cards are right on the same line with the mountain, so he will rely a lot more on his intuition to direct himself for direction rather than GPS. And again, this is not channeling, this is just me pointing out that the cards do agree with what has been said so far. If we are wondering what happened to Kenny Veach, I think that he is, or he may be, in this state right here. And the reason for that is, yes, the first three cards, or even just the first two cards, that's what they point at. And him being in that stage, there are actually two possibilities if we look at the coffin and the side. Either he did him to himself or he had an accident, because the side also has a meaning for accident, and it could be an accident that led to this state, and or he could have planned to take himself out and had second thought, and then it happened accidentally anyways. What I find interesting is that we have the snake here right next to the coffin. And as I was turning the cards over after shuffling them, the first thought that came to my mind was he could have been bitten, like literally bitten by a snake, and not having enough supply to heal himself or care for himself. I don't know how that works, because he was in nature a lot and he loved snake. A bite from a snake could have been what led to the accident for him to end up in this situation. Again, it is a possibility. But around those cards as well, we see the fish and the mice. This is financial trouble. And it is known that at the time of his disappearance, and also from what his girlfriend at the time put in her comment, she did mention that he had financial issues. And this, the mice and the fish, this is literally money bleeding out. And then the fish and the coffin, these are death and financial difficulties. But I could say that based on these cards, he could have been possibly conflicted, because we have the way and the whip cards. Those two cards, this is conflicts going on within yourself about decisions that you have to make. I did mention a sad diagnosis earlier with the coffin and the snake. I'm not sure when that could have happened, but it could have also been related to his state of mind, because again, his girlfriend at the time, in her message, she did mention that he had mental illness or mental struggle. And here we also see depression with the mice and the coffin as well. So that sad diagnosis could have been related to his mental state of mind. So these mice and coffin calls could also be the possibility. I mean, there's also a possibility that Kenny Veach might have felt like he has no control over anything anymore. Money bleeding out, financial difficulties, financial troubles, and he could not go like that anymore. And even the fish and the sight, if I translate literally, that is an interruption of money. So money stopped coming in and instead started going out faster than it would come in. And all this stress here could have just been too much to the point where he could have thought that, okay, I can't go like this anymore, and just decided to do something about it with these two cards, hence planning it. So looking also at the snake and the ladder, this is also the possibility of staging something. The letter and the star here, this is online conversation, and interesting enough, we do know that the main reason that he even went to seek out that cave was because he was egged on to do so online. On this line, especially this line, when we look at the snake, we look at the ladder, the star, the fox, it is possible that there was some type of malicious intent somehow. Did Kenny Veach hurt himself? If I look at the cards at the beginning of this grand tableau, I would say there is a high possibility that he may have, and that is of course just because of this coffin and the side. It is a possibility that he did, but it is also possible that he just had an accident or something happened to him that ended up with him being in this condition. Shortly after Kenny Veach's disappearance, teams were sent out to look for him, and his phone was found. I'm mentioning it again because of this line, because whatever happened to him could have been in his phone. This line screams staging something. If you stage something, it's with in mind to hide something else. So that's what I'm saying. I'm seeing in this land. I also wonder if the military was involved somehow. The reason why I'm wondering that is because we have here the whip card that is very close to the star and the ladder as well as the coffin. The military comes to me because the whip in Lenormand, at least to me, represents people of uniform of some sort. What is also interesting is that Kenny disappeared not far from a military base. Now, the question that I have is, did they stage Kenny Veach's disappearance, or did they stage him hurting himself? As I ask myself those questions, I come back to where is Kenny Veach, because if they stage his disappearance, they also may have to do with that disappearance. That okay, he's far gone. Do they know something about it? Did they make him go away in an attempt to shut him up somehow? This case has a lot of questions, my loves. Now, does the cave hide anything? Honestly, my love, I don't know, because when I look at the mountain card and the garden card, the first thought that I have is that it is possibly hiding in plain sight. Now, how that is possible, I don't know. Yes, it is hiding somehow in plain sight, and people who have traveled to find it may have circled around it, or even seen some cave that they thought it was it without actually it being the actual cave. If they found it, great. If they haven't, I don't know, but is it hiding anything? I don't know. I don't have a yes or no, but I only have that with these two cards, it may be hiding in plain sight. Now, that in itself sounds kind of fishy as well. Like, why would it be hiding in plain sight? And that scream, I mean, if you go by that, it does scream someone is trying to hide it. And now, if that's the case, the other question that is popping now is why? If you have any information or evidence that may help solve this case, please contact the appropriate authorities. Thanks my love for watching, and until next time.
I am an artist, I am an adventurer, and I am an inventor. And I take all those three talents and I combine them and I just create.